have missed and some of the games you may have missed as well. Then we're going to go over some of the worst takes we've heard this week. And of course, we have the documents. We have it in here. We have the top 5 best teams in the league, and we have the 5 worst teams in the league. So without further ado, introducing the 5 worst teams out of Merrimack Valley, New Hampshire. We have Brick Jameson.
And I'm back like a bad rash as we know it. Christmas time is over and we look upon to the new year. Yet the same stories must remain for these 5 teams that are terrible. But first, as we do every week, we're going to go over the teams that are spared. And there is just one on this list this week because they did us all a favor for a team that will soon be on this list again. That is the New England Patriots. They are spared. And I know I once said I never thought I would spare them again, but you know what they did the last couple of weeks? They beat the Steelers, giving them an opportunity to get rid of this winning season nonsense in Pittsburgh and showing them, no, Pittsburgh, you are not a playoff team, bouncing them out of the playoff race. And then this week, we had so much buzz with the Broncos this past few years. Oh my God, they started off so poorly, and now they're back, and they're one of the hottest teams in football. Patriots said, nope, zap, 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 Bailey Zapp, he's going to knock you out of the playoff race, moving them to 7-8. And without further ado, let me introduce my top 5 worst teams, with number 5 being the team that lost to the Patriots this week, the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Now, for a while, right, they started off 1-5. They were consistently on the top 5 worst teams, according to the Brickyard podcast. And this is a list you do not want to be on. So the Broncos, they went out and rallied. They won 5 straight games. They went to 6-5. And they said, oh boy, here we are back in the playoff race with a chance to win the division. And then, as the Broncos do, collapsed in Charger fashion, back like they never left, losing 3 of the last 4 games. And what does this entail? Getting annihilated by the Lions, losing to the lowly Patriots, who want to have Caleb Williams, and then falling flat on their face again at 7-8. The Broncos, you are back on this list. Can you restore it next week and move off of this list? I don't feel confident that you will. But you know what? At least you are not the Los Angeles Chargers, who I have here at number 4. The last 4 games have been the Patriots, where you scored 6 points and somehow won that game, a game you should not have won. The Broncos game, where you scored 7 points against the lowly Broncos, another team on the annual bottom 5 teams. You have the Raiders, who demolished you, embarrassed you, had you tuck your tails behind your leg and walk away with shame. And then you had this Bills game where you bounce back. Oh boy, no more Brandon Staley. A new changing of the guard for the Chargers. And just like the Chargers always do, losing in the last few seconds. So Chargers, you are at number 4. You have not changed. You must look in the mirror and change yourself. Number 3, this team is actually in the playoffs at this point, but I think it's time that I give them their licking that they deserve. That's right. You were 8-3. You were in the driver's seat with the chance to have the 1 seed in the AFC, and you have lost 4 straight games. And you haven't just lost those 4 straight games. You have gotten annihilated by the Ravens. You got annihilated by the Bucs this last week. The Jacksonville Jaguars are number 3 on this list right now. Trevor Lawrence, the chosen one. But now at this point, he is the frozen one. Where is this man? Where in the world is Trevor Lawrence? Because I have not seen him. I don't know who this chosen prince is. Because at this point, I don't think he could even be a Burger King at this point. The Jaguars, you can easily get off this list by beating the Panthers this week. But if you don't, you might be above the lowly Panthers for the worst team, according to the Brickyard podcast. But it's okay. You're not the worst team because there are 2 other teams. Number 2 here, this team, I haven't given them enough of a licking this year, but they deserve it because they have lost 6 straight games. They've been outscored by 90 points in the last 6 games, and they have not won since they beat the lowly Patriots on my birthday. That's right. The Washington Commanders are back on this list, and they should have never left this list. First of all, FedEx Field, why is it built like a high school football stadium? You guys are a professional franchise. Why did you make your jersey designs like you're in the XFL. Why did you name your team after an XFL team? Why is your quarterback Baker Mayfield Light, just like every other light beer? I'm not a fan. So the Commanders, you are the second worst team. But even though this team played better football this week, they are still the worst team because they are the Carolina Kitty Cats, a.k.a. the Carolina Panthers. You have the worst plus minus in the NFL. You are 2-13. And oh yeah, don't forget, you don't have your pick because you've mortgaged your future. You traded away your number one wide receiver and your first pick for this year to get Bryce Young. Bryce Young had a good game last week. I guess when you don't hire Frank Reich and he's gone from that situation, you can only soil Bryce Young so much. I like to think that he will bounce back. But Carolina Panthers, you don't have your first round pick. You are still screwed. You are still incompetent. David Tepper is still a moron. Therefore, you are still the worst team in the NFL, according to the Brickyard.
Another incredible list here. Yeah, I like all the teams there, and I like you calling out the Jacksonville Jaguars on this list because we have seen teams graduate from the top 5 worst teams list, like the Vikings when we put them on the top 5 worst list, and then they went on to do better, brighter things, and then fell off a little bit here. The Bears start to do better things. The Giants start to do better things. Even the Broncos at points. The Steelers at points when they were the Guantanamo Bay. And even the Patriots at this point. However, I would like a shout out, though, on this list with the Dallas Cowboys on the road. I think the Dallas Cowboys road record, if we're doing like the Cowboys on the road, they are one of the 5 worst teams in the league. So a little shout out there would be nice.
Absolutely. But I want to talk about the Jaguars because they were 8-3 with an opportunity to potentially move into that 1 seed or at least be a lock for the 2nd seed in the playoffs. And now you have the Texans breathing down your neck. You have the Colts breathing down your neck. And now there's a fear that you might not make the playoffs at all with how you've played the last few weeks.
Yeah, there is a fear that they might not make the playoffs at all and over the past few weeks. And if you go out there and you lay a dud versus the Panthers, you don't deserve to make the playoffs at all. You have to look at, and then people will say, well, Trevor Lawrence, ankle injury, knee injury, and shoulder injury. And then he's had some issues on the offensive line here. But you're putting yourself out there and you're playing. So if you're putting yourself out there for criticism, I don't care if you're hurt or not, you have to take the lumps that come with it. And it's unfortunate that he's been injured this year. But before that, even it's like, it was, can we move the ball past 15 yards? And it was, I know this team is good, but something just doesn't quite look right with this Jaguars team. And it was, I know they've looked dynamic. I know Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be really good, but he has not looked that great so far. And then sometimes we can run the ball really well with Travis Etienne, and then sometimes you have a game like you did in Tampa Bay where Travis Etienne doesn't do too much running the football, and it's mostly just out of the backfield. How much of that is Doug Peterson, injuries to the offensive line, and injuries to Trevor Lawrence? It's like, well, if he's out there, then he's open for criticism, because if he's not healthy enough to play and he's going to play that bad, well, maybe he shouldn't be playing at all, and you should put CJ Beathard out there as a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to consider. When you have this game against Carolina, this is the most important game of your season. This should be a layup win against the lowly Panthers, who don't even have their first round pick. But you lose this game, you're done for. You're out of the playoffs, and you should be at that point.
Yeah, and you're playing with house money here, too. If you're the Carolina Panthers, like, we don't have our first round pick. Frank Reich is gone. The further Frank Reich stench and boredom and just all around uninspiringness gets away from that franchise, the more confident the Panthers start to feel, and they're starting to graduate from the Kitty Cats, maybe get some of that Panther back in. It's going to be a cat fight next week, but it's definitely the most important game, probably not of Trevor Lawrence's young career so far, because it's basically a playoff game, because if the Colts go out there and win this week, they play the Raiders, which they definitely can beat with Gardner Minshew. It's like, then your season's definitely down the drain. It's like, what are we doing here? Because you have Cleveland coming to town if you win your division, and you have to still win your division to make the playoffs.
Yeah, so I think they're ultimately doomed. But I'm tired of the negativity. I need some optimism. Yeah. Your glass is half full. Therefore, I think it's time that we introduce the top 5 teams according to the Brickyard.
Yeah, so we have the top 5 teams according to the Brickyard this week. And 2 weeks ago, I made the mistake of putting the Dallas Cowboys on this list. I put them as the number 2 overall team. It was their first appearance on the top 5 team. And ever since then, the Dallas Cowboys has lost 2 straight games. So you are now banned from this list permanently forever until there's a different head coach, a different owner, and a different quarterback in that organization. They are never making an appearance on this list again. Sorry, Big Mike. Sorry, Dakota Prescott. Yeah, here we go. No, I don't think we're going very far. And then we have the Kansas City Chiefs. You are still permanently banned from this list until Kadarius Toney's stench is ridden from that franchise. I know he had some plays in the Super Bowl, but he's still been one of the most disappointing receivers with the Giants and now the Kansas City Chiefs. Now you just lost to Aiden O'Connell and the milk mustache man himself. So you are currently in timeout from this list. But let's get into the teams that are on this list this week. And at number 5, we have a team that was like, okay, are they a good team? Because we haven't seen them be any good team so far. Well, this week was good enough. I was going to put either of these teams on depending who won, but that is the Miami Dolphins. We have Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill coming back, and Jalen Waddle on this team. You finally were able to beat a team with a winning record for the first time since you beat Buffalo last year in Miami. You have a chance to win your division, and then you have a chance to really seize control of the AFC this week. If you can go out there and beat the Baltimore Ravens, you will have a first round bye, and you will have an opportunity to get Tyreek Hill a little bit more healthy. And then that defense with Jalen Ramsey coming back and Wink Martindale there has been able to play better. And I think with Van Ginkel and then getting some turnovers there, the Miami Dolphins defense isn't the best defense in the league, but it's good enough to just bend but don't break and give Tyreek Hill an opportunity to blow the game open. So at number 5, we have the Miami Dolphins. And then at number 4, San Francisco 49ers. You were the number 1 team the past week, but since you took a beating that badly, you took some injuries to your offensive line. I need to see your offensive line recover, and I need to see you get on the green side again before I can put you back into the top 3 teams in the NFL. But you still do have Brock Purdy on that team with all of those weapons, but you haven't come back under Kyle Shanahan from an 8-point deficit in the fourth quarter before. So I need to see this team come back, face some adversity before I put them back into the top 3 teams here. And then with that loss on Monday night, losing some offensive linemen, they slide down in the rankings a little bit, but still have one of the best rosters in the league here. But at number 3, we have a team that has made some history here. The first time since 1993, the Detroit Lions have won their division. And unlike the Dallas Cowboys, they can go on the road and absolutely kick some ass and not just get discouraged and embarrassed every time they have to go on the road and face a team. And they can also do it at home in the Detroit Ford Field there. And then also they are lowering the crime rate in Detroit. The last time Detroit had a crime rate this low was the last time that they won the division, which was 1993. So not only are they setting history with winning the division for the first time in not 10, not 20, but 30 years, they are also lowering the crime rate. It's Marshall Mathers' first time since releasing a studio album, seeing the Detroit Lions win the division there. Then you have Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Jameson Williams, and one of the rookies of the year candidates in Sam Laporta. And then everyone wanted to jump on the Bijan Robinson bandwagon immediately and call him the best running back in the draft. But you didn't wait for the full season, because now Jahmyr Gibbs looks like he may be the candidate to be the best running back of this draft, and then the Lions' future going forward from here. And with all the things Dan Campbell has installed in that culture with the grit there, I think the Lions still have a chance to be the 1 seed, but they are the 3rd best team in the NFL according to the Brickyard. And then we come to the Baltimore Ravens, who seemingly have the MVP on their team. They have Isaiah Likely on their team at tight end, and then they went to San Francisco and absolutely beat the 49ers into the ground, discouraged them. And then we had people panicking about Brock Purdy, panicking about Kyle Shanahan. The Baltimore Ravens were able to go on the road, put that massive chip on their shoulder and say, how are we, the Baltimore Ravens, with Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, Kyle Hamilton, the best defense in the league? We have the MVP on our side and Lamar Jackson. We have a Super Bowl winning head coach and not a fraud in Kyle Shanahan on our team. So we're going to go in there, kick their ass, win the game, even if the refs give the 49ers 2 points with tripping Lamar Jackson in the end zone there. But the Ravens were able to get it done in San Francisco, dethrone the 49ers, make them look human, make them look beatable, and then actually give a blueprint for beating the San Francisco 49ers. So they are the number 2 team according to the Brickyard. And last week I had this team in front of them, so I'm going to keep it consistent because they have beaten the Baltimore Ravens. They have beaten the San Francisco 49ers, albeit in Cleveland. We have the Cleveland Browns as the best team according to the Brickyard. We saw Joe Flacco go out there. Even Deshaun Watson had to tweet about it. He just said, Amari, Joe, whoa. And that's what a lot of people were saying. And the thing that makes this win so unique in Houston is you're going up against a good defense. You're going up against a team that has played well at home. And you didn't run the ball particularly well with Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford. And that's been the case with the Cleveland Browns all year long. It's like, what's going to happen when we can't throw a screen to Elijah Moore and he'll take it to the house? What's going to happen when David Njoku can't take a 5-yard slant for 20 yards? What's going to happen when we can't just pass the ball to Kareem Hunt and then he'll make something happen? Joe Flacco down the field to Amari Cooper will happen, and Joe Flacco to David Njoku will happen, and then Joe Flacco to Marquise Goodwin, who made an appearance 2 weeks ago, will happen. The Cleveland Browns officially have a passing game. They officially have the best defense in football with Jim Schwartz coaching up Myles Garrett and all of those boys. And then with Kyle Hamilton getting injured at the end of the San Francisco 49ers, it clearly cements the Cleveland Browns as the better team because they were down 10-24 versus the Baltimore Ravens. They didn't cower like the San Francisco 49ers did. They didn't shrivel up and tuck their tails and say, okay, it's fine, we'll get them next time. They said, no, we're down 10-24. We're in Baltimore. We're on the road. We're still going to go out there and win this game, albeit if it costs Deshaun Watson the rest of the season. But that's okay because we'll give this guy, Joe Flacco, a call. And that's why we are currently the best team in football.
The Browns at number 1. I'm here for it. I really am. I have my Myles Garrett jersey on. You have the elf on your head as well. So this is a Browns podcast this week, and we have them as high as we do. I'm excited to preview them when they play on Thursday night against the lowly Jets.
Yeah.
So Browns at number 1, Ravens at 2, Lions at 3. I like it.
I had them ahead of the Ravens last week, and I kept it consistent. Nothing changed too much with the Ravens, and then the Ravens lost Kyle Hamilton, so that's definitely a big blow. That's definitely someone who got 2 of those interceptions with Brock Purdy, and then he's someone who's been very dangerous off of the blitz there as well. So I think it's definitely fair, and then they beaten the Ravens head-to-head. The game the Ravens beat the Browns was DTR needs CPR's first start in the NFL. And then the Cleveland Browns have also gone out there and beaten the San Francisco 49ers at home. I think that was the game where I think Deebo Samuel or Trent Williams was missing, but San Francisco drops down to 4 because we have all those offensive line issues. Team that isn't having O-line issues is the Detroit Lions here.
Yeah, I like it. And the impressive thing about the Browns is how many injuries that they've had, losing someone like Nick Chubb and losing some other guys on defense and throughout the entire team, and still being able to make it to where they are now. Credit to Kevin Stefanski, credit to this team and how much grit they've showed.
Yeah, credit to the Cleveland Browns for showing grit, showing up week in and week out, being on their 4th quarterback and still being one of the best teams in football. The Ravens are number 1, but the Browns showed that they could go punch for punch with the Ravens and then eventually come out on top there.
Yeah, so that is our top 5 and bottom 5 teams according to the Brickyard.
Yeah.
And now as we look forward to the rest of the show, we preview our games, talk about the craziest shit. So as you know, we are members of the media, but we don't identify as a mainstream media pundit by any means. We are the outsiders, similar to Mr. Donald Trump, Vivek, and other outsider candidates. If you've ever read The Outsiders, we identify as those guys as well. And this week, you know, we talked about Cam Newton last week.
Yeah.
And, him calling Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy and some of these other guys game managers. Well, an ESPN pundit, I don't even know her name.
Kimberly Martin.
Kimberly Martin, that's her name. I don't even know her name. She put on a show on Get Up, I believe it was.
Yeah, she was on Get Up.
She was on Get Up, and she said that you have the exact
Yeah, so she goes out there on Get Up, and then Kimberly Martin comes out, and she's like, well, I think Cam Newton, in a year where there's no quarterbacks on the field, and it's a year of backup quarterbacks, like, why isn't Cam Newton out there playing? Like, first of all, you're calling out Cam Newton's take, and your first inkling, you're like, you know what's a good idea? I should call out a guy who got the crap beat out of him by TJ Watt, got the crap beat out of him by DeMarcus Ware and the Old Spice guy who went to from Denver, who went to the Rams.
Von Miller?
Von Miller, yeah. He got the crap beat out of him by Von Miller in the Super Bowl in the first game of that season. And your first take with that, calling out Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff game managers, is to call him out for not playing. Like, that doesn't matter. That has nothing to do with his take. And then you compare him to someone tweeting at you from their basement, telling you to get back into the kitchen. It's like, no, first of all, Cam Newton is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. When he was playing, he was one of the most dominant players in the NFL, even if he didn't have the best completion percentage in the world. So instead of going for substance and diving into his take, well, maybe like Dak Prescott, you can make some arguments there. Your first, you call out his outfit, and then you go right after him not playing in the NFL. It's like, have you ever taken a hit from TJ Watt before? Have you gotten in those pads before and taken a hit from Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware? It's like, and first of all, Cam Newton probably knows more about football than most people do, especially on a show. And it's like the same thing where it's like, oh, well, you're talking about football, but you don't work for a network. So it's like, you obviously must not know football. It's like, no, you can know football without talking about it, but you have to have some substance for your argument. And your first point can't be just like, where's Cam Newton playing? You sound like someone in their mother's basement calling me to get back in the kitchen. It's like, what are you doing on national TV?
It was very venomous. And that's been the issues with the media really this entire year. And this is why we do these segments that we do. It's like, the issue is not disagreeing with Cam Newton's take. The issue is attacking Cam Newton, the character, Cam Newton, the person.
Yeah.
First of all, we'll get one thing straight with Cam Newton. He is a Heisman winner. He won a Heisman. He was a first overall pick. A Carolina Panthers franchise, which is a consistent worst top 5 team according to the Brickyard, taking that team, making them 15-1, having one of the best regular seasons of all time, bringing them to a Super Bowl and facing off against the Broncos. Cam Newton having one of the greatest single seasons of all time, and then becoming one of the most influential running quarterbacks of all time, inspiring the likes of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, modernizing the NFL as we see it today. He is definitely one of those people. Him and Michael Vick, you can shout out, definitely. And then not only that, him also being a fashion icon, him being an icon in pop culture with the dab taking over 2015. Cam Newton is qualified to talk about football. He spent 10 years in the NFL. He played from 2010 all the way up until 2020. He played for the Patriots, played for the Panthers, and ultimately, the history of Cam Newton's career was him getting beaten the crap out of, especially after that 2015 season with TJ Watt, with that Patriots team that did not have good offensive line. Cam Newton is qualified to talk about football. He's a smart man, and he is, like I mentioned, first overall pick, Heisman winner, MVP winner, Super Bowl participant.
Yeah.
He's qualified to talk about it. And then attacking his fashion is so shallow, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about the point itself, calling people game managers. You want to talk about the game manager conversation? You definitely can. Is Dak Prescott a game manager? Is Brock Purdy a game manager? Whoever it might be. You disagree with his take, that's fine. But don't attack the person of Cam Newton, because that's disingenuous.
Yeah, and it's like, why are you talking about Cam Newton not playing anymore? It's like, are we going to talk about like, well, Tony Romo is calling the game, and I'm not gonna attack Tony Romo like, oh, where's Tony Romo playing? I'm just gonna be like, no, Tony Romo is severely annoying for how he talks about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, I get, but Josh Allen has not proven as much as Patrick Mahomes. So that's my gripe with Tony Romo. I'm not going to be like, where's Tony Romo in a year of all these backup quarterbacks? It's like, no, Tony Romo would die if he stepped on an NFL field legitimately. And then Cam Newton, just because he doesn't have the ability to play, and now you're probably making him feel bad that he's not on a team right now too. It's like, it's just not professional, and it's a bad take too. And like, if you want to have the conversation about Dak being a game manager, it's like, well, he proved this week that he is a game manager, and he proved Cam Newton's point. And like, what games, like, you can't point to any playoff games, any big moments where Dak Prescott has taken over in his career and been a difference maker and not managing the game. And Cam Newton's point was there's only Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and a few other guys that you can legitimately call someone who can change the game, because it's he's pointing out a flaw in the media saying, oh, this guy's a top 10 quarterback and they can change the game. He's like, no, you're a little bit overreactionary. You're trying to just have a hot take for headlines. There's only a handful of guys legitimately that can change a game, and that's not a bad thing.
No, that's what separates the elite quarterbacks from the rest of them. And, you know, him mentioning the Lamars, the Josh Allens, the Patty Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, whoever it might be, these are what separate the special from the really good.
Yeah.
And there are really, like Dak Prescott, he is a good quarterback. Brock Purdy, he is a good quarterback. But there are guys who take it to that next level, like Lamar Jackson. Why Lamar Jackson is the favorite to win the MVP is because when shit breaks down, whether it's the offensive line collapsing or whether it's an injury and they have to elevate their game, he does that. And that's what separates, you know, someone like a Lamar Jackson from a Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and Lamar still doesn't have someone as good as CeeDee Lamb. He has Odell Beckham Jr., but Odell's a little bit older. So it's like you can point to Lamar has like never had a CeeDee Lamb. He never had CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper at the same time. And if he was on the Cowboys team, they would have had a much better chance of getting to a Super Bowl because of the running ability of Lamar Jackson and how he can break the game open that way.
Yeah, and you look at Cam Newton's take, and I don't think it's that crazy by any means. Whether you agree with the people he shouted out, like, that's fine. Maybe Jared Goff is in a different place than these other guys, or maybe you feel Dak Prescott's different from that, but I don't think what he said was that controversial, and I don't really understand why it's gained so much steam with the media and why they're so upset about it.
Yeah, I don't get why they're so upset about it. But again, the take, it's like just going right after Cam Newton, like, oh, well, where are you in a year we need quarterbacks? Like, okay, Kimberly Martin, where are you in a year where we need quarterbacks? Like, oh, yeah, you're out there calling football. It's like you're on there on ESPN talking about football. It's like, where are you when you could be playing in the WNBA? It's like, it's such a shallow take. It's like someone calling out Joe Budden for when he talks about Drake. It's like, okay, so people who never rap before and aren't failed rappers can talk about Drake. But if Joe Budden wants to have a podcast, he can't talk about how Drake's lyrics are immature for his age and how he hasn't grown up. And then people like will attack Joe Budden, like, where are you not rapping right now? It's like, well, he can still be a media pundit and have an opinion without you attacking his rap career. Like,
yeah.
If you disagree with his opinion on Drake, that's fine. But you don't need to be like, oh, Joe Budden, you're a failed rapper, and that's why your opinion's wrong. It's like, no, that's not why his opinion is wrong. Maybe you think Drake's lyrics aren't as childish as Joe Budden does. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's you can't attack the character. You want to attack the take, you can, but don't attack the character.
Exactly.
Because there's humans behind that keyboard.
Yeah, and it's like you can say like Gabe Davis and like you can like have your fun with him, say he's not a number 2 receiver, but we're not saying like Gabe Davis is a bad person. We're not attacking Gabe Davis's fashion.
I'm not saying his wife should divorce him because he's not a good receiver. I'm like, no, I think Gabe Davis is a good receiver, but I don't think he's a 2.
Yeah.
But that's not me saying I hate Gabe Davis. Like, I don't hate Gabe Davis, the person. I want Gabe Davis to be very good. I want him to be a number 2. I just don't think he is. Similar to how you felt about Christian Kirk last year.
Yeah.
And the comments went insane when you said that.
Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah. And then it's the same thing with Micah Parsons. He has like some questionable takes on his podcast, but I'm going to talk about his take. I'm not going to be like, well, Micah Parsons, why aren't you the defensive player of the year? Well, it's like we have Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. It's like, it's fine if you're not the best player in football.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't agree with a lot of Micah Parsons' takes, but I still see him on the football field. I still think he's fantastic at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And I still see Cam Newton. It's like, I like his fashion, and I know some people don't because there's still that old school boomer mentality for some reason. But it's like he can dress however he wants. We don't need to attack his fashion. They did the same thing to Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, and they destroyed Russell Westbrook at one point
Yeah,
and completely barbarian him, trying to basically have his career be over at
yeah,
one point with how they treated Russell Westbrook. So media can be very venomous at this point, and attacking these old icons, I just don't think it's right. And this is what they do with music. This is what they do with pop culture, with actors, with musicians, athletes. Like, you got to treat these people respectfully, even if you don't agree with them. So that's our
yeah.
take there.
Exactly. It's like you may not like someone like Eminem's like new like records like and like it may not like be for you, but like his old stuff, you can't just say he's like a horrible rapper.
Yeah, exactly. These are icons at the end of the day, especially someone like Cam Newton, iconic, Eminem, iconic. These icons, I just don't feel like they're always respected the way they should be, especially when they kind of fade out of their peak, you know?
Yeah, especially someone like Cam. It's like Cam was so good coming up.
He really was. I mean, he elevated that team. We always talk about that 2015 team and how bad that
Yeah.
team really was. He made that team. There's no way. I don't think there's any quarterback that really could have made that team 15-1 other than Cam Newton at that point.
Yeah, and he had Jonathan Stewart and then it was Tolbert there, who the massive running back. And then people are just trying to be like, oh, well, Ted Ginn Jr. is a lot better than people gave him credit for. It's like, yeah, that's like saying that no one appreciated um, Danny Amendola when he was on the Patriots. It's like, sure, Danny Amendola was better than maybe some people gave him credit for, but should he have been the number 2 receiver on the Patriots? Absolutely not.
No,
Should Chris Hogan have been on an NFL team when he was on the Patriots? Probably, but should he have been in rotation? Probably not.
he shouldn't have had as big of a role as he had.
Yeah, he shouldn't have had a bigger a role, but then we do have here some receivers that go on, but it's like, yeah, it's like there's a lot of revisionist history with things like this too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of history, we have some history that could potentially be made in the playoffs this year. We're here to preview all of the playoff standings right now, starting with the AFC. We have the Ravens, who have a showdown with the Miami Dolphins this week. They're going to be playing in Miami, going up against the Dolphins here for the number 1 seed, potentially. And then we have Ravens versus Dolphins. Do you think the Ravens lock up the number 1 seed this week?
I think so. So if they beat the Dolphins, they clinch.
Yeah, they would clinch.
I think that defensively, I trust the Ravens more. Offensively, I trust the Ravens' ability to counteract the Dolphins' defense more. And I would take Lamar Jackson over Tua Tagovailoa. So I take the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to take care of business. I don't know whether or not they blow them out or not, but I definitely think they take control of that game pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think the Ravens should. I think my only question would be the health of Kyle Hamilton, because if he's not a go for this game, I think that would be a situation where Tyreek Hill could take over and then he would get loose. And then Kyle Hamilton, he does a lot in the secondary because he's 6'4" and can cover some tight ends and wide receivers and get some turnovers. But he's also a big factor whenever they're blitzing teams. So he's a great safety coming off the blitz there. So you kind of lose a little bit in the pass rush and a little bit in the secondary there. So if he's not 100% go, I would say that could be advantage Dolphins.
Yeah, I think without Kyle Hamilton, they haven't that benefits the Dolphins. But I think even without him, I'd still take the Ravens just because I trust where they're at this current stage. And Dolphins, they got the win against the Cowboys, but I still believe in the Ravens more than the Dolphins. Is this in Miami?
It should be. I can get the exact spot here.
Okay, because I still think I trust the Ravens on the road as well.
It's in Baltimore.
Yeah, I think Baltimore is going to win that game. I don't think they're going to blow them out necessarily, but I definitely think that the Ravens should win that one.
Okay. Yeah, so we still have the Ravens getting the bye there as the number 1 seed. And then the Dolphins, if they lose that game, would be in a showdown with the Buffalo Bills. And then if the Bills do what they should, and we think they should beat the New England Patriots, then they would be in a showdown not only for potentially the 2 seed, but for the division.
For the Bills?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Bills face the Patriots and then they face the Dolphins, right?
Correct.
And then, so assuming the Dolphins lose to the Ravens, would the Dolphins still be the number 1 team in the East if they were to lose this game
If they were to lose to the Bills,
to the Ravens.
to the Ravens, yeah, they would still be the number one team in the East this week. But if the Bills beat the Patriots, then they have the Dolphins, and they would have beat the Dolphins twice, so they have the tiebreaker there. So then they would fall down to the 6th seed.
Oof. Ouch. And then face the Chiefs,
Yeah.
who they've already lost to. That's not good. I really need to see how the Bills are against the Patriots this week, and I have to see how the Dolphins are against the Ravens. But my early gut pick, and again, sometimes I make my decisions based less on whether or not I think one team's better than the other, but more and less what I think the NFL is pushing for. I think in this case, I would pick the Bills to beat them in this case, because I think they want the Bills to make a deep playoff run. They want the Bills to be good. They want Josh Allen to be good. So I'd take the Bills to surpass them.
Yeah, I would still take Miami here. I think Miami still is the better team. And then they're a much different team than when they faced the Bills earlier this season. The Miami Dolphins weren't really up to that task there. And I think getting Jalen Ramsey back, now you have someone who you can put on Stephon Diggs. And then they're really going to test if the Bills can actually run the football. It's like, okay, I feel like teams are going to be like, if you want to run the football, that's fine. And then we'll have to see if Josh Allen, how much of a rhythm he'll be able to get into this game. But I think Miami still should definitely win the division. I don't think a 9/11 speech is going to save the Bills this time, but I still think they make the playoffs.
What about like a Boston bombing or, the Oklahoma bombing?
Yeah,
Speech?
from Sean McDermott. Yeah, I really have to feel like Jacob Sarnaya or
What about like Pearl Harbor? You think Pearl Harbor's enough for them?
yeah, they need to feel like the Japanese. Maybe, yeah, because they're going to Miami. That's close enough, right?
That's pretty close. I feel like that's pretty close to Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. I don't think that would save the Bills this time. I do think the NFL wants Miami to be good, especially not only with the Dolphins, but Miami has become one of the marquee cities now, especially in the US. A lot of people moving there, and then there's been a lot of buzz going on. And then Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is a matchup that I feel like a lot of people want to see. But I think either way there, the Bills would be the 2 seed. Or the Dolphins would be the 2 seed, and they would probably match up with each other because the Browns are pretty much locked into that 5 seed there if they finish with 5 losses. And then the Chiefs have lost to the Buffalo Bills already, so the Bills would have the tiebreaker there for the 2 seed.
Okay. So chances are they could face the AFC East could face each other in the playoffs potentially.
Yeah. Potentially. It looks like though the AFC East would probably be the 2 seed, so they would face whatever team is the 7th seed, and then the Chiefs would face either the Bills, and the Bills would be the 6th seed, or if the Bills make it, then the Chiefs would face the Dolphins. So either team is probably going to face the Chiefs.
Okay. Which team do you think would match up against the Chiefs better? Would you trust more of a Miami situation because of how much firepower they have? Or someone like the Bills who have history with them might have more animosity. Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. Is there a team that you would be more confident in beating the Chiefs?
Probably. Ooh, that's tough. Probably Miami, though. I think Tyreek Hill has the playoff experience, and then he wants to really take this team to the next level. And then they just have more continuity on offense. And I feel like Miami is more consistent with who they are than Buffalo, where you see these erratic swings with Buffalo, like from up or down, and then Josh Allen turning the ball over. Where Miami, it's like they either blow a team out or they're just pretty steady along there, and it's not too much fluctuation. So I would say Miami, and I like Mike McDaniels more than Sean McDermott.
Yeah, I feel like this is tough for me because I feel like the Bills at their best can go head to head with the Chiefs and win because they did that earlier this year. I feel like the Bills could beat the Chiefs in this situation because of the animosity that they have, because of the history, and because of how vulnerable the Chiefs have been. I think it really comes down to my trust in Tua because I feel like Tua is the reason why I'm not as embracive of the Dolphins because of how I've seen him play in big games against good teams. At the same time, I've also seen Josh Allen give away games. So
Yeah.
those are 2 teams I don't fully trust, but I feel like the Bills have a better shot at beating the Chiefs than the Dolphins do.
Who do you think's more locked in though right now to their team, specifically where they are? Do you think Tyreek Hill is more happy where he is, or do you think Stephon Diggs is more locked into where he is?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely Tyreek Hill, but I also think that Josh Allen has a more ability of a way to elevate his game than Tua can with his legs. So I feel like Josh Allen has more of that, less of a game manager mentality where he can elevate his game in the playoffs. Because I mean, that playoff run when he ran into the Chiefs with that 13-second game, like he was on pace to have like a Joe Flacco level playoff run. And I think that if he had beat the Chiefs, he could have possibly made the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think either team would give him a challenge, but yeah, with Josh Allen, it's like he has the ability to elevate his game, but he also has the ability to lose the game in that way. Where Tua, it's like he's not necessarily going to lose the game, but he's not necessarily going to win the game for you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But it remains to be seen. That's the
I think-
last game of the season, right?
Yeah, I think either team would beat the Chiefs, though, right?
I think both teams have the ability to. Because,
Okay.
I mean, when the Dolphins faced them, they faced them overseas, so they had the jet lag, and that game was close. I think
Yeah.
it was a one-score game. So, I mean, is it fair to assess the Dolphins on how they faced the Chiefs overseas? Because they faced in Germany, I believe,
Yeah.
or London. So, and that was also early in the season as well. So, I definitely think that I think the Chiefs probably want to face the Dolphins more, but at the same time, like both of these teams can beat the Chiefs right now, especially because you have to basically contain Travis Kelce and everybody else is a liability to them.
Yeah, especially if Pacheco is not necessarily a full healthy go right now, and he's had some concussion issues. So I think either of those teams would be a competition. And then with the Chiefs, we'll see if they can flip a switch in the playoffs here, and then we'll probably see Patrick Mahomes run a lot more than we've seen him before.
Yeah, he's starting to run now. I think he had 50 yards last week, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, and it didn't matter. So we had pretty much whoever wins the AFC East is going to be the 2 seed, and then whoever loses gets the privilege of facing the Kansas City Chiefs, which takes us down to our 4 seed and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Want to pull up who they're facing next over the past few weeks. So we have them facing the Panthers, and I believe they finished the season with the Titans again.
Yes, so they face the Panthers and Titans. Those are two teams that they should beat, but this is the same team who has lost the last 4 straight games, albeit against 4 teams that are either in the mix or locked into it, with the Bengals, with the Browns, Ravens, and Buccaneers. But they have gotten annihilated by those teams as well in some instances. But they face the Panthers. They should definitely beat them. You think they can beat the Titans again as well?
No. I think the Titans defenses can slow them down, especially if we're going to look this bad in Tampa. I get it's Tampa Bay and they're surging right now and they have all the momentum going for them, but that doesn't give you an excuse to look that bad versus Baltimore and then lose to Jake Browning on Monday Night Football. When you had a chance to win that game and stomp it out before overtime. I just think the Titans, if you're going to be that bad on defense, then I think the Titans defense will be able to slow you down. And then Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis, whoever it is, can do enough to beat this Jaguars team. If you remember last year, it was Josh Dobbs, the legend himself, who is starting, and the Jaguars barely beat them to make the playoffs. And it's probably going to be the same situation where they have to make they have to beat the Titans to have a chance to make the playoffs there. So I don't think they beat the Titans. No.
And then for the Colts, who is a team that's breathing down their neck, same with the Texans. It's like Colts are the 7th seed. They have a chance to elevate themselves to the 4 seed and take on the Browns. So they would face the Raiders this upcoming week. And Raiders, it's hard for me I think they should beat the Raiders, but the Raiders are playing good football with Antonio Pierce. And then they end the season with the Texans. And the Texans are still on the outside looking in.
Yeah, Texans are still on the outside looking in. So I think, who do the Texans face next?
They face the Titans next week.
The Titans next week?
CJ Stroud should return.
Okay, if CJ Stroud returns, they should be able to beat the Titans. I have a feeling that the Colts could potentially lose to the Raiders this week, but I think that last Texans-Titans game is going to decide who ends up making it to the playoffs or wins that division. Because that game could be, if the Jacksonville Jaguars lose to the Titans, could be for the division.
Yeah, so, I mean, ideally, let's say that the Jags, worst comes to worst, they lose to the Panthers, right?
Yeah.
They're then 8-8, and they've lost 5 straight games. And then they go into a place like Tennessee, who's a team that has given them issues in the past, who is playing upset ball right now. I mean, they are eliminated from the playoffs technically. So that's a team for the Jags I have a hard time believing. Of these 3 teams, who would benefit the most from winning their division and who can go head to head with a team like the Browns the best?
Um, I would say the Colts would benefit the most from winning their division because you have a good culture installed there. This is without Anthony Richardson. This is getting rid of the stench of Frank Reich, who's gone from the franchise, and you have Shane Steichen there. So you'd prove like, hey, we can do it with Gardner Minshew, who some people think is a perennial backup quarterback. Once we get Anthony Richardson back, we're going to be even better next year. Then we won the division in a year that was supposed to be the Jaguars' year to lose and potentially their year to make it to the Super Bowl. And then we're able to step up, win the division after losing both games to the Jaguars. I feel like the Colts would have the most confidence out of any team after winning the division.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The Jags, with how they've played in the month of December, they wouldn't feel confident taking on Joe Flacco. And then the Texans, like, you have CJ Stroud who's banged up. You don't have Tank Dell. You're relying on Noah Brown and even, Robert Woods as well. I think that the Browns would have a good opportunity to shut them down. The Colts, they're a team that have beaten the Browns and they put up a good fight against them. So, I mean, this is a team that knows what they're capable of, and I think they could definitely give them hell.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to face the Browns though, because the Browns would be going up against. Oh, right, if they win the division, yeah,
hmm
yeah. I think the Browns would be either any of those teams though. I think
Yeah.
it's kind of going to be like maybe a situation like what we thought the NFC East was going to be, but I think this is going to be the Browns game to win. And then with the 6th seed, do you see if either team beats the Chiefs, do you think it's a rematch of the Ravens and Browns in the second round where we get a trilogy fight there? Or do you think a team in the another wild card team is going to upset either the Dolphins or the Chiefs?
Let's look here. So, if we assume, right, that the Raiders are out and the Steelers are out of the mix here, it'd be the Bengals or the Texans or the Colts that would take on the Dolphins, ideally, in an ideal world. Of those three teams, I think the Bengals could definitely beat them. And then the Colts, if the Colts fall to that 17 and they take on the Dolphins, I also think that they could give them hell just because of how much firepower they have. And this is assuming Michael Pittman's back and the two running backs are back as well.
Yeah.
Of any team that's in the mix that could beat the Dolphins, I think I would pick the Bengals at that point.
Yeah, I think I'd pick the Bengals too, especially Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are probably a better duo actually than Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah. Well, they're two guys who complement each other better than the other two.
Yeah, and then they have playoff experience, and then that defense, I would think they can do enough to slow down the Miami Dolphins. But I think the Bengals will make the playoffs if they beat the Chiefs on Sunday.
Yeah, I think so too. But I say we move over to the NFC, take a look at that and how it's shaped up. Because right now we have a 3-place tie for the 1 seed, with the 49ers having the tiebreaker at this moment in time. Do you see anybody surpassing the Niners for that 1 seed?
I don't. It depends if the Niners beat the Rams. Because the last week they're facing off against the LA Rams. If you have some issues on your offensive line, that's definitely something that the Rams would be able to exploit. And then the Rams played them tough the last time they played. So I think with Kyron Williams, Cooper Nakoa, and Cooper Cup there, I think if the Rams are able to beat the Niners, then the Lions would be the only team that could be the 1 seed, but they would have to beat the Cowboys on Saturday, which I have a feeling that they will. So I think the Lions have about a 12 to 15% chance to be the 1 seed. If not, I still think it's the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the Niners should be the favorites. I know they had a tough game against the Ravens, but every other team this year, they've been able to pile through. I don't trust where the Eagles are at this point in time. So, and especially because I believe the Lions would not have the tiebreaker if the Eagles and them had the same record as well. Because right now they're the 3 seed and they have the same record. So they have the tiebreaker based on strength of victory. So that being the case, the Eagles would probably have a better chance of having that 1 seed, which I definitely think they would need if they're going to have a long playoff push.
Yeah. And then the Lions are probably the only team that could be the 1 seed. Do you see them beating the Cowboys on Saturday night?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I believe that.
So if they beat Dallas on Saturday, then they have Minnesota. So do you think Lions are probably locked into that 2 seed now? And then they would probably face off against their nemesis, talking about rewriting history, the Seattle Seahawks, and they would be hosting him. They've had two really wild competitive games there that came down to a Jared Goff turnover at the end of it. And then last year, Lions just couldn't stop anyone, and it wasn't exclusive to that game. Do you think the Lions would rewrite history versus Seattle?
In the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah.
I think so. This is a team that's been waiting for this moment, being in the playoffs, having all the momentum that they had this year and whatnot, especially with the Seahawks being one of those teams. We always talk about the hurdles that they've had to overcome with the different teams they face. First one starting with the Chiefs and now facing the Seahawks in the playoffs, a team that's given them hell historically. This is a team that they would have etched on their calendar. I think that they'd be ready to rock.
Yeah. And then now we have the Philadelphia Eagles locked into the 3 seed. Do you see them staying there now that they face the Giants, I believe? Who's the next team that they face here?
They face the Cardinals.
The Cardinals, yeah. So they should be able to beat the Cardinals. Then you have the Giants again. So I think they're a lock to win their division at this point.
Yeah, and I trust them more than the Cowboys because they can beat people on the road.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty
Who would have
important.
thought?
I think that's pretty important in the NFL. You can't go 3-6 on the road and 8-0 at home and expect to be world beaters. So yeah, I think the Eagles are still a better team, even if they have their issues. I think that they should be the 3 seed.
Okay. And then so we'd have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who we have locked into that 4 seed now. They'd face off against the Dallas Cowboys still in the first round. Do you support my take now that I had a couple of weeks ago that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to upset either NFC East team that they play in the first round?
Especially if it's the Cowboys, a team that can't score more than 20 points on the road. Yeah, I think especially if it's the Cowboys. This is almost in the Cowboys' DNA. And the Tampa Bay, how the Buccaneers played against the Jags last week, like they're getting hot at the right time, and the Cowboys can't beat anybody on the road. I definitely believe that. And if it's the Eagles are just tired. Yeah. And I feel like the Bucs could definitely wear them down. I feel more faith in the Eagles if they are beating that, if they're facing them. But the Cowboys, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a nightmare game if you think about it for Skip Bayless, because Skip Bayless, I'll give him credit. When he has a take, he sticks to it and he does not get off of it. And that could be years or decades later. And he never left the Baker Mayfield train. No matter how bad Baker Mayfield looked, whether it was in Carolina, he was in LA, he was like, nope, I saw him play at my home stadium of the Oklahoma Sooners. And I think he was deservingly so the number 1 pick in the draft. And then he's been supporting Baker Mayfield all season long. He supported him going to Tampa. And then he would be facing off against the Dallas Cowboys, who Skip Bayless is a diehard fan of, who he picks to go to the Super Bowl year in and year out when Tom Brady is not playing in the NFL or the NFC. So it would kind of be a nightmare matchup for him with Baker Mayfield taking on his team in the Dallas Cowboys. So either way, though, it's an I told you so for him.
Yeah, and that's exactly how he's going to spin it, too, and whoever wins that game. So I'm excited to see it. That's going to be the Skip Bayless Bowl.
Yeah, the Bayless Bowl. And then, yeah, because they faced Tom Brady last year. Now they face Baker Mayfield. And then the Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the 4 and the 5 matchup last year. Do you think this is a different Tampa Bay Buccaneers than we saw last year with Tom Brady?
Yeah, because I mean, except for with the exception of earlier in the season, this Bucs team moves the ball a lot better than that other team. That other team, like, even though you had Tom Brady, you have the GOAT at quarterback, that offense just struggled. Everything was such a grind. And this Bucs team, like, you have elements of it sometimes with Baker because Baker's a little more limited. But the last month or so, that has not been the case at all. They can move the ball down the field. Mike Evans has been getting loose. Rashad White, Chris Godwin, and Kate Otten. Like, this Bucs offense, I feel like is a lot more developed than this last team before them. So yeah. I'd say the Bucs are a little bit better now.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is less injured. Because I feel like going to the Super Bowl and then going to like back-to-back deep playoff runs for most teams in the NFL where you're still one of the final 8 teams left there, it takes a lot out of you. And I think definitely injury-wise, it showed up there. And then the offensive line is much healthier, where pretty much their whole starting offensive line group was hurt. Ryan Jensen immediately got hurt in training camp that year, and it was kind of a domino effect from there. And then you had Devin White, Levante David, Shaq Barrett were all banged up. They're all healthy this year. And then especially with Vita Vea, I think with them to beat Dallas, it's like you can kind of just let CeeDee Lamb get his and then focus on slowing everyone else down.
Yeah. I also think with the Bucks last year, Brady, whether he'd admit it or not, I think in the back of his mind kind of felt like he probably should have retired the year before.
Yeah.
And then he also had the lawsuits with FTX. He had the divorce. And I felt like that was the year he felt that he was ready to hang it up. So I think that in the back of his mind also kind of derailed the Bucks a little bit. But now it's like Baker Mayfield, comeback player of the year, arguably. And this Bucks team, I think, has a little bit more juice than that last team.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like there's some hungrier players that they want to prove they can do it without Brady. And Baker Mayfield just wants to prove he can do it in general. So I think, yeah, that'll be a good matchup in round one. And then we have the Rams now. They would take on the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw them play earlier this year. It was a close-ish game. Then the Eagles kind of pulled away late. Do you see the Rams going to Philadelphia and upsetting them?
I think it's possible. I mean, you have the head coaching matchup there. I think Sean McVay might be a bit above Nick Sirianni, although they're both great head coaches. I think that with what they have with Kyron Williams, who has been their best running back since Todd Gurley, with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp complementing their game so well, and how hot the Rams are, with how the Eagles have looked the last couple of weeks, I think they could definitely upset them.
Yeah, especially when your weakness is the secondary when you're the Philadelphia Eagles. It's like, I don't think that's going to go too well with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, especially now with Kyron Williams. You can't just tee off on Matthew Stafford anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And their offensive line has been a lot better the last couple of weeks as well. So I think that's a benefit for the Rams as well. They're going to be a pesky team of whoever they face.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting matchup, though, especially if we get Rams head to head, and then we would have Seattle and Lions, which would probably be a fireworks show with Tampa Bay versus Dallas. These are all really good matchups. And I have the Rams definitely locking into that 6th seed there. They have the tiebreaker over the Seattle Seahawks. Then it would be, do you think Seattle is going to maintain being the 7th seed here? Because we have some other teams that are 7 and 8 right now. Packers kind of fell out of it a little bit. And then the Saints are in the mix, but no one really believes in them.
Yeah, I mean, the teams that are really still in the mix is like the Vikings, who I have a hard time believing in at this point. And then the Falcons, please God, no. Saints, please God, no. And Bears, they're basically out if they lose another game. So really, it's like it's either the Seahawks or the Packers, and the Packers are going to have to win 2 more games to surpass them. So yeah, and plus I just got news just now that TJ Hawkinson's out for the rest of the season.
Oh no!
So I think that it's going to basically be the Seahawks, unless if the Packers can prove me wrong.
Yeah. Who do the Seahawks play the next few weeks?
Yeah, let's take a look here because the Seahawks, I know that their schedule was pretty tough the last couple of weeks, but I think that it's starting to subside a little bit.
Yeah, we have the Steelers this week.
Yeah, so they face the Steelers and then they end it on the Cardinals. Cardinals and Seahawks usually play pretty close together, but the Seahawks, I mean, if they can clinch a playoff spot, I think they're going to be out and rolling. So I think they should beat both teams.
Yeah, I think they should beat both those teams there, but that would be 3 really good first round matchups. I think you have upset potential in all 3 of those games there. Potentially some wild card favorites on the road, but I think Eagles Rams would be a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's a lot of upsets in the NFC that you could potentially see. AFC vulnerability. I think like the Jags are definitely on upset alert with how they've played. The Chiefs are on upset alert. The Dolphins. This might be the year of the upset potentially.
Yeah, especially with how this year has gone. It's been pretty much expect the unexpected in every single week this year, because as soon as you think you know what's going to happen, as soon as you think you know who the MVP is going to be, then someone falls off the wagon there, and then Joe Flacco comes out of the blue, and then suddenly the Cleveland Browns are back on top. Just when you think they're dead in the water, they rise. The Texans,
the Colts.
Yeah,
it's amazing. The Broncos, even how bad they played to start the season, getting hot, getting back in the mix, and then falling off a cliff again.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting NFL season to say the least.
Yeah, but let's go over the second to last week of the NFL. It's coming to a close here soon, sadly, but we're here to preview all of the games, starting with Thursday night, we have the Jets and Cleveland Browns. Jets are going to Cleveland after a win where they actually put up points. They got 30 points, and then they are 7.5-point underdogs in Cleveland facing off against the Browns. Who do you got? Do you think they cover the spread?
Well, I'm going to definitely take the Browns here. Revenge game for Joe Flacco in the dog pound against a Jets team that can't score. Even though they scored against the worst defense in football, which, give them credit there, Brees Hall. But we have the best team in the NFL, according to the Brickyard, taking on a Jets team that is demoralized. Give me the Browns here, and I do think they cover.
Yeah, give me the Browns here. And then for all the reasons you just said, Joe Flacco is going to remind them why they should have called him after Aaron Rodgers went down in week 1, and he should have been the starting quarterback, not Zach Wilson. There's not anyone who has any NFL or football sense that actually thinks that Zach Wilson is better than Joe Flacco. So give me the Browns in this game on a short week, and I'll also take them to cover the 7.5-point spread.
I'm in for it.
And then we have on Saturday night, there's no 4:00 games, but we do have Monday Night Football on Saturday night. So we will have Troy Aikman and Joe Buck covering the game where the Detroit Lions are going to Dallas as 6-point underdogs.
See, the only reason why I think it's that high is because we're facing off against the home Cowboys.
Yeah.
Home Cowboys could be a top 5 team according to the Brickyard. Away team, obviously, bottom 5 team. So I think that's why that spread's so high. But Lions and Cowboys, I'm going with my gut here. I'm going with kneecaps. I'm going with Sam Laporta. I'm going with Amon-God St. Brown. I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm going with Jared Goff, who I would take over Dak Prescott. This Lions team, I think they're trying to get hot at the right time so that they can go into the playoffs and make a run. Cowboys, you just got embarrassed by the Dolphins. Even though it's at home, I don't trust the Cowboys. Give me the Lions.
Yeah. Yeah, the feeling the Lions will win this game, but just to jinx it, every time I pick against the Lions, they end up winning the game. So I'll pick the Cowboys in this game because I want the Lions to win. And then if the Cowboys win, then it won't be as bad because I picked them. But I'll take the Lions to cover the spread. But I think the Dallas Cowboys average 40 points at home. They're clearly better with CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard on that turf that they have there. They open up the playbook a lot more. And I think just the Lions defense has had some problems. So I want to see how they match up against the Cowboys before I fully embrace them. But yeah, I'll take the Cowboys, hoping that the Lions win. And then if the Cowboys end up winning, then, well, I picked them to win. So it's not too bad. And then we have the 49ers coming off a devastating loss on Monday Night Football where Trent Williams and a few offensive linemen went down here versus the Baltimore Ravens. And people are starting to lose confidence that they are the undisputed favorite. But don't worry. You're going to Washington to take on the Commanders, and you're 13.5-point favorites on the road.
And they're going to cover as well because this Commanders defense is the worst in football. Coming off of a loss for Kyle Shanahan, we all know his record there. And you just got embarrassed by the Ravens. It's like this team's going to get ahead early and they're going to absolutely roll them. I think the Commanders, maybe they score about 20 points, but I think the 49ers drop about 40.
Yeah, I think the 49ers drop about 40. This is a revenge game, especially coming off a loss. The 49ers want to go out there and flex their muscles again. So I'll take the 49ers to win and cover as well for all of those reasons. And then we go to Arizona going to Philadelphia, and they are 11-point favorites on the road, which I think is a little bit too big, especially because the Philadelphia Eagles haven't been blowing out anyone as of late. And I think the Cardinals haven't been playing horrible football. So I'll take the Eagles to win, but give me the Cardinals to cover in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a prime game where you look at the Cardinals, you see them against a superior team. I think this is a game where you could definitely see Vegas definitely cover the spread there. So I'm going to take the Cardinals to also cover. I can't with good conscience pick the Cardinals to beat them, especially with where the Eagles should be. So yeah, give me the Eagles to win with the Cardinals to cover.
Yeah, so Eagles to win with Cardinals to cover. And then that brings us to the Atlanta Falcons. They're not at home this week, but they're going to Chicago, and they are currently 3-point underdogs versus the Bears. So Vegas pretty much thinks this is a toss-up game. What do you think of it?
Well, I know one thing. I know that the Bears are playing good defense right now. Montez Sweat has elevated his game since joining there. I know that Justin Fields is playing for his job, although he might be auditioning for the Falcons in this game, whether he knows it or not. And I know that the Falcons are so much worse on the road as they are at home. So I think with all those things considered, and plus the Falcons don't have this guy, number 85, Notre Dame tight end,
Cole Kmet.
Cole Kmet, and they don't have DJ Moore either. So give me stepdad Eberflus to get the win against the Falcons at home.
Yeah, I'll take Coach Stepdad here. And the Bears have actually been playing pretty good football as of late.
Mhm.
They were able to tamper out the Lions, kind of make people doubt their Super Bowl hopes a little bit, even though it is a close division rivalry. So give me the Bears here. They've been playing better defense since they got Montez Sweat. And Coach Stepdad hasn't been the worst as of late. And then Justin Fields has been freeing up some storage space to compute some more information. So I'll take the Bears here at home, especially because the Falcons, I hate them on the road. And then the Bears will kind of enter into the wild card conversation. They're not out of it yet.
Yeah, they're still in the mix. Who would have thought? They looked like they were dead in the water. Tyson Badgett won a few games for him. Justin Fields came back, and now they're doing something. Good for them.
They are doing something. And then talk about a team that's doing something ever since they were out of the mix. The Carolina Panthers haven't been a winning team, but they haven't looked as bad as of late. And they're going to Jacksonville to take on the reeling Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars are favorited at 7 points, even though they only put up 13 points last week. What's your thoughts on this game, and who do you think comes out on top?
This is a very dangerous game for the Jaguars because this Panthers team is a team you should win against, but I just have a really weird feeling about this game that we're about to see some really terrible football on both sides. Panthers, they impressed me with how they moved the ball last week. So I'm actually going to call a super upset here and actually pick the Panthers to beat them. Dare I say it?
Yeah. Are you
I
going to
think-
take the spread?
I'm going to take the Panthers to cover the spread. I think that they actually have a chance to win this game, believe it or not, just with how bad the Jags have looked with Christian Kirk, where they missed desperately, and how banged up Trevor is. I think this is a prime upset game right here.
Yeah, this is a tough game. Like, I can't wrap my arms around the Panthers fully, but I get what you're saying, and I have the same feeling. I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars because I would hope you can win this game, especially with Trevor Lawrence. But if not, fully off the bandwagon forever, and will never embrace Trevor Lawrence until he wins a Super Bowl. So if Trevor Lawrence loses this game, you are in the same realm of Josh Allen that I won't fully embrace you till you win a Super Bowl. So please don't let me down this game, Jacksonville Jaguars, or you are done forever.
You are done forever. The Brickyard curse could continue.
The Brickyard curse will continue. And then we have another cursed game here where we have the New England Patriots heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills, and they are currently 12-point underdogs.
12-point underdogs? Well,
Yeah.
I know a man who will be a gambling man this week. I think that with how the Patriots defense has performed this last few weeks and the Bills, I know the Bills I think should win this game, but 12 points, I think that that's a bit of a trap for those investors here. I would take the Patriots to cover that spread. I think it's going to be closer than people think, but I do take the Bills to win this game.
Yeah, I don't. I take the Patriots to win this game. I have a good feeling about the Patriots. I have a little bit of the same feeling you have the Panthers and Jags. It's like with the Bills having the opportunity to beat Miami and have that showdown, we've had some of those opportunities that were supposed to be that massive showdown in the NFL this season and ended up being a massive letdown so far. So I think with this NFL season, expect the unexpected. As soon as everyone's talking about a team and their stock goes super high, that's when it's time to sell and get off of it. So as far as I'm concerned, New England Patriots should be the favorites in Buffalo to win this game. A 12-point spread is way too much there. And if you struggled that much with Easton Stick in Buffalo, what are you going to do with Bailey Zappi when he zaps your playoff hopes and your hopes of winning the AFC East? So give me the Patriots in this game. I think they cover and have a great shot to win this game and upset the Buffalo Bills.
Wow. 2 bottom 5 teams, according to the Brickyard, with a potential win. They might not be on the bottom 5 teams next week if these outcomes occur.
Yeah, they might not be on the bottom 5 this week, but 2 teams that are on the top 5 this week are facing off. And we have the Miami Dolphins heading to Baltimore with the Ravens as 4-point favorites.
Yeah. in Baltimore with the MVP favorite, with that defense, with the weapons there. I have the Ravens here. I feel confident with the Ravens. I would bet it. You said +4. I
Yeah.
would take the Ravens to cover the 4. I think that they're going to have a good game plan as long as they can contain Tyreek Hill. With Kyle Hamilton potentially sidelined, that does hinder their chances, but I don't think it's enough for me to bet against them. I think the Ravens are the best team in football currently, and I would take them to beat the Dolphins. I don't want to say handedly because that might sound bad, but I think they take care. I think they control the game throughout.
Yeah, I think the Ravens have the potential to do that in maybe a playoff scenario, but you put so much time, effort, and energy focusing in on the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is a prime game for the Miami Dolphins to go into Baltimore and upset the Ravens and cover the spread there, especially with Kyle Hamilton's injury being a question mark there. You went to San Francisco, you beat the best team in football, and typically after one of those massive wins, we've seen some letdowns this season. So give me the Miami Dolphins to win, not because I don't think the Ravens aren't one of the best teams in football, but I think this is a prime time for the Dolphins to step into it, beat the Ravens, put themselves in the 1 seed, and then lock up the NFC East. And I think this is the game they've had circled on their calendars for a few months, where the Baltimore Ravens are probably more focused on destroying the 49ers with being the underdogs in that game than the Miami Dolphins are on beating the Baltimore Ravens in this game. So I think it means a lot more to the Dolphins than it does to the Ravens in this game, because there is a potential for the Bills to still beat Miami and the Ravens to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, what we've seen historically, whether it's the Cowboys after the Eagles, whether it's the 49ers after the Cowboys and all these other games, like it's definitely happened. I believe in the Ravens that they're one of those teams that can maybe not fall into that trap, but I think the logic is there.
Yeah, and then also last time they faced off was when the Ravens were up 3 scores and the Dolphins were able to come back. So I think without Kyle Hamilton, it's not a team that the Dolphins are scared of or think they can't beat. And then with the Chiefs, Tyreek Hill was always kind of able to have his way with Baltimore's defense.
That's true. Yeah, it's going to be a good game to watch. Is this a 4 o'clock? Is this a primetime game?
It's at 1 o'clock.
Really? Come on. We have the Jets and Browns, but we have this game at 1 o'clock. That's a disservice to the fans.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see what the Sunday night game is instead of this.
That's a joke.
Yeah, Sunday night is the Packers and Vikings. I'm
Really?
sure everyone would rather see Packers and Vikings on Sunday Night Football than Dolphins and Ravens.
Everyone would much rather see Jordan Love and Nate Mullins. Okay.
And then after that, we have the Raiders heading to Indianapolis to face off against the Colts. Colts are currently 3-point favorites at home, hosting the Raiders after they come off their win in Kansas City. Raiders' second game of a back-to-back road week here. Who do you like, Indianapolis or Las Vegas?
See, I think that this is going to be a close game, and I wouldn't even touch the spread in this game because I feel like that's going to be exactly what it comes down to. It comes down to a field goal. I like what I've seen from the Raiders the last few weeks as far as defensive-wise, shutting down some big teams. However, I don't trust their offense. I mean, they didn't have a completion after the first quarter, so I don't trust their offense at all. Meanwhile, for the Colts, I don't know the status of Michael Pittman for this game, and I think that's going to be a big factor. I expect this to be a very low-scoring game. I think could be like a 13 to 10 kind of game, but I will pick the Colts to win this one.
Yeah, I'll take the Colts to win this game as well. They have not only playoffs in their sights, they have the division title in their sights with the Jaguars reeling here, especially if the Tennessee Titans or the Panthers do them a favor. So give me the Colts in this game, and I'll take them to cover the spread there at 3 points. Just can't fully wrap my arms around Aiden O'Connell going into Indianapolis's environment.
Yeah, no, me neither.
And then we have the Rams, who are on the road in East Rutherford, New Jersey, taking on the Giants, who are probably going to be starting Tyrod Taylor here. And they are 6-point favorites with wildcard hopes on the line here. Who do you like in this one?
I mean, without the gabagool, without Mama's cooking, I don't trust the Giants to do anything. We're going to see a lot more of the Daniel Jones level offense with Tyrod Taylor than Tommy DeVito. I like the Rams in this game to cover pretty handedly, and I think they score 30 points for the 6th consecutive week.
Yeah, give me the Rams here as well. I like them versus the Giants, and I'll also take them to cover the spread, especially without Danny DeVito. It's not too much else going for the Giants outside of Bobby Okereke. And we say it right on the show. Just look at Pat McAfee announcing him in the draft. You'll understand. And then we have the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facing off potentially for the division title here. Saints coming off a blowout loss on Thursday Night Football. Buccaneers riding that high versus Jacksonville and against the Green Bay Packers here. They are 3-point favorites at home. Do you like Derek Carr nice or Derek Carr wreck?
Derek Carr wreck. Are you kidding me? This team, I mean, you look at the score of that Rams game. Sure, it said 30-22, but it was 30-7. I turned the game off. I went inside and I played Destroy All Humans, reprobed. The Bucks are in a much better place than the Saints right now. The Saints are a mess. Their salary cap issues for next week are a disaster. The Bucks, meanwhile, can clinch the division and be 9-7. Give me the Bucks all day in this game, and I beg that the Bucks win this game because I do not want to see the Saints anywhere near the playoffs. This team should be sniffing the bottom of the barrel of this NFL franchise because they need to adjust what they are right now. Meanwhile, the Bucks, they're the hottest team in football. Give me the Bucks.
Yeah, I'll take the Bucks here as well. And then, as you mentioned it, the Saints should only be sniffing the bottom of Vita Vea after he's had an enema. That's how much they deserve this season. So I'll take the Buccaneers as well. And then if they win this game, they get to rest some players heading into the playoffs. So then they lock up the division pretty much after this game. Atlanta is still technically in the mist, but I think the Bucks get it done.
I think so too.
And then we have the Tennessee Titans going to Houston, potentially with CJ Stroud returning in this game. Texans are 3.5-point favorites at home after the Texans had previously beat them on the road in Tennessee. I believe that game went to overtime.
It did go to overtime. Yep. And if we can, I'm banking on the fact that CJ Stroud should be playing. And if CJ Stroud's playing, then I like the Texans in this game. If not, this is where I would lead the Titans. But with just CJ Stroud and his ability to elevate the talent around him, I would take him to win. I'd be at a close game. I'd pick like a 19-16 game, but picking the Texans to win.
Yeah, I'll take the Titans to win this game. I think Tannehill played well enough last week, and then they went to overtime. Will Levis ended up going out in that game, but I think the Titans defensively will be able to do enough, especially in Houston, coming off a pretty demoralizing loss to the Cleveland Browns. I think Tennessee will be able to do enough, and then they're going to be playing upset ball for the last few weeks of the year for Houston and potentially for the Jacksonville Jaguars playoff hope. So give me the Titans as the dream crushers for the rest of the season.
Okay.
And then we have the Steelers to kick off our 4:00 games, taking on the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Seattle currently 3.5-point favorites. The real question is, are George Pickens and DK Metcalf going to get the targets they deserve?
The question is definitely no in that time. I'd like to think to see they both get 10 targets, but that's just not realistic in this level of offense. Although Mason Rudolph is playing as the starter in this game, so maybe Mason Rudolph will let it rip. But I have a feeling in this game that we're going to see the Steelers win. I just think, how much chaos is it going to be if the Seahawks lose this game? Then we're going to have it set up where there's all these different tiebreakers that go into that last week of the season. I know what the NFL wants. And I think they want Mike Tomlin to have that winning season for the 17th year in a row and for the Seahawks to lose this game, setting up a chaotic week 18.
Yeah. And then Steelers, I believe, play the Baltimore Ravens in week 18. And then if the Ravens lose to the Miami Dolphins, Steelers beat the Ravens last year in the last week of the season, which prevented them from winning the division, I believe, and overtaking the Cincinnati Bengals. So Steelers could also give the Browns an opportunity in the last week to win the division.
And have the 1 seed potentially.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. I hope so.
But in this situation, I will take the Seahawks, especially at home. I want them to stay in that wild card spot. And I feel like with DK, they should just target him, get him the ball with Geno Smith. And I think they should be able to beat the Steelers. And then I'll take the Steelers to cover the spread, though, because I think it'll be a closer game than 3.5 points.
Yeah, I think so, too.
And then we have the marquee matchup of the 4:00 slate. We have the Cincinnati Bengals going to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, even though they couldn't score more than 14 points last week, they are currently 7-point favorites.
Yeah, I don't like the spread there. I do think that in Arrowhead, coming off of a loss in the Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid era, I would take the Chiefs to win this game. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think the Chiefs defense should be able to contain Jake Browning at least a little bit. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. That's why I don't like the 7.5 point spread. This seems to be like a 17-14 kind of game.
Yeah.
Tough defensive battle. And also the Bengals and Chiefs always come down to a field goal at the end of the day. So I think one way or another, it's going to come down to Harrison Butker or Evan McPherson. I'll take the Chiefs just because they're coming off of a loss and they are the Chiefs. I feel like I have to trust them a little bit. So I'll pick the Chiefs to win this one.
Yeah, I'll take the Bengals in this game because Chiefs coming off a loss would previously be good if you had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid of a few years ago, but this is not your father's Kansas City Chiefs team. And the Cincinnati Bengals, they struggled with the Steelers and they've struggled in division so far this year, but they've been the best matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs so far. And I think the Bengals defense still is very good to this point. Lou Anarumo does have his finger on the Kansas City Chiefs pulse at this point. So I think without Joe Burrow, the Chiefs are kind of not going to have the animosity. They're not going to get up the same way for their players calling it Burrowhead. We don't have Eli Apple saying crazy things. We don't have the mayor of Cincinnati acting up before this game. So I think all of those things lead to a Bengals victory. And then the Kansas City Chiefs offense just not being able to score the same way it has been able to the past few years. I don't think just because they lost a game that their remedy is going to be that they're going to win the next game, especially this Chiefs team this year.
I think they're definitely going to want to get up for the Bengals. This is a team that knocked them out of the playoffs and just been kind of the team that's had their number the last several years. So I think
that's been Joe Burrow though. So I think without Burrow on that team, maybe you don't take him as seriously.
I think they still are going to want to, just because that's still a team that has all that animosity with Cincinnati. I think that the Chiefs are going to want to get up for this game. I think they'll win this game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout game, but I think it's going to be a tough defensive game and Chiefs prevail.
Yeah, I'll take the Bengals to prevail here. I would go 27-21 in this game.
I like 2017.
But I think 7 points is way too much, especially with the Bengals defense.
Yeah, I would definitely take the Bengals to cover in this one. I think it's going to come down to a field goal at the end of it.
And then after that, we have the Chargers and the Broncos. Broncos are 5-point favorites. Yay. I guess this is a game that's going to be played on Sunday that Scott Hansen is going to take a bathroom break and just fall asleep at the wheel at. And for some reason, this game is going to play more than the Bengals, Chiefs, and the Steelers, Seahawks, even though those two games have playoff implications. And this one is just going to be Scott fell asleep at the wheel.
Easton Stick and Russell Wilson, two teams that should be out of the playoffs. I don't know whether I should bank for the Chargers to beat the Broncos so that they're officially eliminated, or if I should bet for the Broncos to blow out the Chargers so that my Chargers fans could just rest easy because every game is a heart attack. I don't really care who wins this game, but I guess just for playoff seeding, I'll take the Chargers to beat the Broncos. Do I think they will? No, but if they lose, then the Broncos are basically already out of it, and they would have a losing season. So I am betting for the Chargers fans out there, for Mr. Devin Gennard, for Mr. Zach Vujanov, I will pick the Chargers.
Yeah, for this game, I'm going to use my last one of the year. I'm just going to go with tie because neither of these teams should win. And I think the Broncos should miss the playoffs. And I would love for them to have made the playoffs if they had won this game, but they inevitably tied. So I'm going to go with the tie because Chargers did give the Bills a little bit of a fight here with Easton Stick. We don't have Brandon Staley there. He's officially working at Starbucks or Taco Bell or somewhere else. Maybe he's a Walmart greeter at this point and he'll take a risk with some of his greeting here. Maybe he'll greet you 4 minutes to close instead of you not coming into Walmart and him turning you away. So he's out there taking risks at Walmart while the Chargers are out here with a new head coach. So I would lean Chargers, but I'll go with the tie.
Okay. I will accept the tie in this game because that is what America deserves.
Yeah. And then we have the Packers and Vikings on Sunday night. Jordan Love versus Nick Mullins. Both of these teams are fighting for their playoff lives at this point, trailing the Seattle Seahawks. One of these teams is going home. After this, they won't be able to make the playoffs. The Vikings are favored at 1.5 points at home, which I think is kind of interesting here. And then Jordan Love, last time he was on Sunday Night Football, made a name for himself by outdueling Patrick Mahomes.
I believe in a thing called love. So the Vikings, we lost TJ Hawkinson. We have Nate Mullins to rely on. He threw 4 interceptions this past week. Really, it's going to be Justin Jefferson or bust in this game. Jordan Addison got banged up last week too. I like the Packers to win this game and stay relevant in the playoff picture, and the Vikings fall out of it.
Yeah, I'll take the Vikings to win this game as well. Like what I saw from Aaron Jones last week. Nick Mullins had 4 turnovers in last week's game versus the Detroit Lions. Not in love with that. And then I think Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur usually step it up on Sunday Night Football. So let's see the Green Bay Packers go out there, stay in the wild card hunt, and then get a win on Sunday Night Football and then cover that 1.5 point spread.
I like it. Now, our last few games of the week.
That is the last game of the week because there's no Monday Night Football. It's Saturday Night Football with the Detroit Lions and Dallas Cowboys. So we went over every game. There's a ton of 1 o'clock games. My only complaint this week is like I always want one more game at 4 o'clock. I feel like 4 games is never enough at the 4 o'clock slate, especially if you're watching Red Zone. So maybe this is a week where I just turn on the Bengals and Chiefs and turn the sound off so I don't have to hear Tony Romo the whole game.
Yeah, that might be a good strategy. You sure you don't want to watch Chargers Broncos?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sure. That's definitely going to be a game. Even Steelers Seahawks, like it has playoff implications, but
Yeah, like those 4 o'clock games are going to be such a droll. The only benefit is that, for the fantasy owners, like they're going to be able to see who's the champion. And I guess that's really what people are going to be looking forward to is, if Jordan Love, if he's on your team, if Justin Jefferson's on your team, what they can do. But best of luck to the fantasy championships and how that goes out. Week 17, looking forward to it in the playoff pictures that prevail.
Yeah, but you have been previewed and then we recapped you in the last episode. Make sure you check that out on our YouTube channel, Brick Nation Media, or wherever you consume your podcasts on Apple, Spotify. We are there. And then we're pushing towards 500 subs. We're almost there. So make sure you go give us a like, give us a subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Anything helps and anything is much appreciated. But until next time, we will see you with the week 17 recap.